Good evening, mighty TOK squadron. Um, so we're gonna start this experiment of distance learning. Um, I think you guys are gonna thrive in this sort of educational situation environment. You guys have been doing this all year, and I hate to compliment you again because we all know how much I hate complimenting students. But and I'll reiterate what I said the other day. Your thinking has shifted. Your knowledge and your thoughtfulness and your inquiry based approach is getting pretty stellar. So let's keep this rolling, right? Let's stay in that sort of mode. Although we will have the added distraction of not being in a classroom, but that's okay. Because some of the best thinkers and knowers and doers and inquirers and knowledge gatherers and knowledge givers in the world are not collectively doing it at 9:30 to 10:05 every morning, every other day. So that being said, I wore this. I was gonna wear this with this, just because. But we've already done that. We've already sort of had the art unit, and I know the artists in the room. Just seeing the contrast of patterns would probably want to throw up if they saw that. So that being said, the work this week is interesting. It's topical. Your real life situation is your real life right now. So let's share mine. You guys know that I collect these dumb things. This is the Funko Pop, right? Bulbasaur, some Pokemon action. Flocked, which means it's furry, should you take it out of the box. But what's interesting here is that sticker. Limited edition to the ECCC, the Emerald City Comic Con, which was supposed to happen last week, but did not because of the threat of coronavirus. So the company, Funko, instead of selling them at the convention, think Comic-Con, it's similar to that. The company sold them online, which is fine, right? But, as a collector, this is a real inconvenience. I had to, be online at a certain time and click a certain link and get in line and hope that people didn't, so hope they didn't sell out. Think like sneaker collectors. They use what's called bots. So you've got these computerized shoppers that have your credit card information, and they just enter the information automatically and buy as many as they can. So anyway, I wanted to just share a real life situation for you. Your real life situation is living in the wake of this coronavirus, which we don't know the extent of. And that's kind of the impetus and the motivation for what you're going to be doing this week. So you're gonna kind of be researchers. You're gonna go into the science realm, which we haven't done so much. We did a little bit of it with the Gamma NPR podcast, but this week is going to be a whole lot different, right? The chapter in Oxford, I think, is really good. One of the strongest chapters. It really lays down the law in terms of structure and procedure. So I think that will really help you in your presentation. I boiled it down, the things that I want to see contained, and you can make your slide presentation based on those components in the chapter, which I've given you the page for. If you go back a chapter, there's also an interesting conversation in Oxford about the responsibility and ethical and moral designation of research that if you're savvy, you will go back and check. We haven't gotten to that chapter yet, but we will. But you're talking about human sciences versus natural sciences. That's a whole other sort of framework in terms of how your sciences conflict and also enhance each other. So I think you'll find that interesting. I also want you to include the idea of ethics and language and emotion and insight. So those are the kind of things that are going to drive your presentation over the top, is if you can bring in that content and talk about them in the framework of a knowledge question. But here's the rub, and here's what's so difficult about this. It's easy to just do a presentation about coronavirus. There's so much stuff out there. But you're not giving a coronavirus presentation to people in the know. You're giving a coronavirus presentation to people who do not know. So you're incorporating language, and that's also part of your writing this week, and incorporating your audience. So this is going to help you in terms of just generating good presentations that are effective based on your understanding who the audience is. You know, I've given you more this week, I feel like, in terms of like, this is what I expect. There's not as much leeway, but I really want you to be sensitive to those other caveats that I want you to hit. So you're giving a presentation to middle high schoolers. That's the general idea. And I hate to say it, but, and I include this in the directions, is that there's been a lot of hearsay and perhaps even outright racism and ignorance in the conversation about coronavirus. So I want you to address that. So I want you to evaluate, in terms of your digital media expertise, sources. That's going to be a big deal here, and that's part of your research as an ATL skill, is understanding where you're getting your sources from. I encourage you to go find some lunatic fringe, way out there nonsense. I encourage you to look at that, because it's interesting, because you might dismiss it as like, oh my God, this is clearly nonsensical garbage. But understand that there's there's media consumers who might not have those evaluation skills that you do, and are not able to discern the difference between this is something I should take seriously and this isn't. And because of those fringe outlier resources, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of bigotry, there's a lot of outright just racism going on. I hate to say it, but I've heard peers, I've heard students with it push that narrative. So I want you to address that. It's not easy. It's not easy. So when you start doing your presentation, pretend that you're giving it to 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, right? You're not giving it to 250 TOK students or 250, IB students. You're giving it to a middle high school group in an auditorium. And maybe they've been fed that stuff. Maybe they've heard it secondhand. So that's where the challenge comes in. I want you to be sensitive to it, because it's really interesting as we get into the academic world. The later part of this assignment asks you to look at the intersection between sciences and language. When you say this, what does this other person think you're meaning? There's a great section in the Oxford text that goes over that. That talks about, they did studies, and they showed, like, when you're saying this, what do people hear? So it's good stuff this week. As you know, I hope you know, I love our day one, day two, second period interactions. So I'm gonna miss our face-to-face time, but so what I'm gonna do moving forward, if you've lasted this long, is I'm gonna post videos hopefully every day, if not at least every other day. I'm going to post them as day one, day two. So it's going to be the same video. In the comments, please, to this video, not on YouTube, but in the Google Classroom. The only reason why I'm using YouTube is because my laptop, my Mac, won't upload into the Google Classroom. I have to translate it into a YouTube clip and then blah, blah, blah. So anyway, in the comments, I'm going to post this as a discussion in our Google Classroom. Respond, right? Give some feedback. How do you want the class to look like? What do you want the class to look like? respond in the form of video or recording or text, whatever you feel comfortable with. Like let's try to keep it in our comfort zones. Let's try to make it look like a as much a classroom as we can. And then as these videos are uploaded, when I challenge you with these questions, while you're working on your other work and you're reading your Oxford text, you are reading your Oxford text. We comment and like we are in a classroom. I experimented with the voice thread thing. I'm going to toss that. It's not going to work. But it will work as a Google Classroom discussion board. All right. So I look forward to seeing your responses as we move forward. If you have any ideas about what you want to see or how you want to see it or what you want this formatted, please reach out. I'm one-on-one like this between 9 and 2 each day. But as you all know, if you reach out to me later in the day, I'm going to respond to you, right? It might not be immediately. It might be immediately. It might not be immediately. But I will respond as soon as I possibly can. So I look forward to our interactions and taking this to a whole new cosmic space. And hey, like, take this experience for what it is. This is now an RLS. This is now a real life situation. This is now a topic for you. This is now a big deal manifestation of human existence, and take for what it is, and be safe, and look out for people, and keep in touch.